Imagine waking up one morning and realizing the people you trusted most are now the people who want you dead. Hell's Kitchen is quiet, too quiet. It's just before sunrise. The streets are almost empty. A few cars move through the darkness, and inside a small Westies hideout, Jimmy Roarke sits alone at a table. In front of him is a cup of untouched coffee, a revolver, and a folded piece of paper. Roarke slowly opens the paper. There is only one sentence written on it. Sweeney knows. Roarke stares at the message. He doesn't panic. Instead, he smiles, because he already knew this moment was coming. For weeks, Roarke has been challenging Eamon Sweeney's authority. The younger Westies believe Sweeney has become too cautious. Roarke thinks the old rules are killing their future. But Sweeney sees something Roarke doesn't. The streets are changing. The FBI is getting closer. Gotti's organization is watching, and the Westies are becoming too visible. Roarke wants expansion. Sweeney wants survival. 2 men, 2 visions, 1 organization, and only one of them can control it. Roarke folds the message and puts it in his pocket. Then he makes a phone call. It's time. We don't hear who answers. Roarke hangs up. Cut to Sweeney. He is sitting inside his apartment. Across from him is one of his oldest men. Sweeney looks exhausted. The older man places a photograph on the table. It shows Roarke meeting several younger Westies. Sweeney looks at the photograph. Then he asks, how many? 7. Sweeney's expression changes. 7 men. That's enough to start a war. But the older man has one more piece of information. There's an 8th. Sweeney looks up. Who? The man hesitates, then says, Keenan. Silence. Sweeney doesn't believe him. Keenan has always been complicated. He knows the streets, he knows the Westies, but he has also been moving closer to law enforcement. Sweeney realizes something terrifying. If Keenan is involved, then the problem is much bigger than Roarke. Someone may be feeding information to both sides, and suddenly, Sweeney doesn't know who he can trust. Meanwhile, Detective Polk is sitting in her office. On her desk are photographs, names, phone records, financial records, and one large board connecting the Westies to Gotti's organization. Polk has spent months building this case. Now she finally has something concrete, but she needs one person to break. She picks up the phone. Keenan. He answers. Polk says only, we need to talk. Keenan looks through the window. His son is outside, waiting for him. Keenan tells Polk he can't. She replies, then you're going to lose more than your job. Keenan hangs up. His son walks into the room. Dad? Keenan turns. Yeah? Are you coming home tonight? Keenan doesn't answer immediately, and that silence tells us everything, because Keenan knows he may not be able to promise that anymore. That night, Roarke gathers his men. He tells them Sweeney is finished, but one man refuses. He says, Sweeney built this. Roarke steps closer, and I'm going to make sure it survives. The man asks, by killing him? Roarke doesn't answer. Instead, he walks away. And that is when we realize something. Roarke hasn't decided whether Sweeney needs to die. He has decided that Sweeney needs to disappear. But before that can happen, someone else makes a move. Sweeney. He orders his men to find Roarke and bring him back alive, because Sweeney wants answers. He wants to know who is behind the rebellion, and he wants to know whether Keenan is part of it. But what Sweeney doesn't know is that Roarke has already set a trap, and by midnight, the Westies are heading straight into it. The meeting is supposed to happen in an abandoned warehouse. Sweeney arrives with 4 men. No police, no outsiders, just Westies. Sweeney enters first. The warehouse is dark. He calls out, Roarke. Nothing. Then a light turns on. Roarke is standing on the other side of the room, alone. Sweeney laughs. You brought 4 men for me? Roarke replies, no. He looks toward the darkness. I brought them for you. Suddenly, doors slam shut. Men appear from the shadows. Roarke's 7 younger soldiers surround the warehouse. Sweeney realizes the truth. This isn't a negotiation, it's a coup. But Sweeney doesn't look frightened. He looks disappointed. He looks at Roarke and says, you really think these kids will follow you after tonight? Roarke says, they already do. Sweeney slowly removes his coat. Then he says, then you've already lost. The first gunshot explodes through the warehouse. Everyone dives for cover. Chaos erupts. Boxes crash. Bullets rip through the walls. One of Sweeney's men is hit. Another returns fire. Roarke disappears behind a concrete pillar. Sweeney moves through the darkness. He isn't running. He's hunting. And within seconds, he finds one of Roarke's men. Sweeney points his gun. but he doesn't shoot. Instead, he asks, "Where's Roarke?" The young man says nothing. Sweeney lowers the gun. "You're not ready for this." Then he walks away. That moment tells us something important. Sweeney isn't trying to win the war tonight. He's trying to understand it. Outside, Roarke escapes through a back door, but someone is waiting for him. Keenan. Roarke freezes. "You?" Keenan says, "Get in the car." Roarke doesn't move. Keenan looks at him. "You have 5 seconds." Roarke gets inside. They drive away. Roarke asks, "Why are you helping me?" Keenan says, "I'm not." He reaches into his coat and pulls out a recording of Sweeney talking about Gotti. Roarke listens. His face changes, because Sweeney isn't simply protecting the Westies. He's planning to sacrifice them. Sweeney has secretly been negotiating with Gotti. The plan is simple. If the FBI gets too close, Sweeney will give Gotti the younger Westies as disposable targets. Roarke realizes that Sweeney has been preparing for this possibility for months. Keenan tells him, "Your war isn't with Sweeney." Roarke looks at him. "Then who?" Keenan says, "Everyone." But there is another secret. Keenan didn't give Roarke the recording out of loyalty. He gave it to him because Polk ordered him to, and Polk is listening through a hidden device. Everything Roarke says is being recorded. The FBI finally has what it needs. Meanwhile, Sweeney returns to the hideout. One of his oldest men is waiting. Sweeney asks, "Who told Roarke?" The man says, "I don't know." Sweeney looks at him. "You're lying." The man insists he's not. Sweeney pulls out the photograph, then points at one face, Keenan. He knows too much. The man asks, "What do you want to do?" Sweeney answers, "Nothing." Then he pauses. Not yet, because Sweeney has another plan. He calls Gotti and tells him, "We have a problem." Gotti replies, "No." He says, "You have a problem," then hangs up. Sweeney realizes something. Gotti is abandoning him, and suddenly, the man who thought he controlled the Westies is completely alone. The next morning, Keenan wakes up to find a message on his door. There are 3 words: "We know everything." He immediately thinks of Polk, but then he sees the symbol beneath the message, a Westies symbol. Someone knows about his cooperation with the FBI. Keenan rushes to his son's school. He finds him outside, but his son is angry. "You weren't there last night." Keenan says, "I had work." His son responds, "You always have work." Then he walks away. Keenan watches him disappear, and for the first time, he realizes that the case isn't the only thing he might lose. He may lose his family. Meanwhile, Bridget receives a phone call. The voice tells her, "The mission is over." Bridget asks, "Who said?" The caller says, "Your people." Bridget realizes something is wrong, because the IRA contact who gave her the mission is dead, and someone else has taken control. Bridget searches through the documents she has collected. Then she finds a photograph of Roarke. But Roarke isn't the important person in the picture. Standing beside him is someone Bridget recognizes, Keenan. She realizes the Westies and the investigation are connected in a way she never understood. And then she discovers something even worse. The person who ordered her mission wasn't trying to destroy the Westies. They were trying to control them. Bridget has been a pawn. She immediately decides to leave. But someone is waiting outside. She reaches for her weapon. A voice says, "Don't." She turns. It's Sweeney. Bridget asks, "How long have you known?" Sweeney replies, "Long enough." He tells her that the people behind the operation want Roarke dead, but they also want Sweeney gone, and they want the Westies broken apart. Bridget asks, "Why tell me?" Sweeney says, "Because you're the only person left who isn't afraid of Roarke." Bridget realizes Sweeney is asking her to do something impossible. Find Roarke and stop the war. But before she can answer, a gunshot comes through the window. Sweeney pulls Bridget to the floor. Another shot. Then another. They escape through the back. The shooter disappears. But Sweeney finds something on the ground. A bullet casing. He recognizes it. It's not a Westies weapon. It's FBI issued. Sweeney looks at Bridget. They're here. But Bridget knows something he doesn't. The casing was planted. Someone wants Sweeney to believe the FBI attacked him. And that person is Roarke. Roarke is creating a war between the Westies and law enforcement. Because if everyone starts shooting at each other, he can disappear. That evening, Roarke meets Gotti. Gotti tells him, "You're making a mistake." Roarke says, "No." Gotti responds, "You think you can replace Sweeney?" Roarke says, "I don't need to replace him." He leans forward. "I need everyone to believe he is already finished." Gotti smiles, then says, "That's exactly how I started." But Gotti isn't giving Roarke support. He's testing him. And then Gotti reveals the biggest secret of the episode. Sweeney isn't the one who betrayed Roarke. Keenan is. Roarke looks stunned. Gotti explains that Keenan has been feeding information to the FBI. But that's not the real betrayal. The real betrayal is that Polk has been using Roarke too. Roarke realizes the entire rebellion may have been manipulated. He asks, "Why are you telling me?" Gotti smiles. "Because tomorrow, you're going to kill Sweeney." Roarke says nothing. Gotti continues, "And when you do, everyone will think you started the war." Roarke finally understands. Gotti wants the Westies destroyed, and Roarke has been the perfect weapon. The final act begins at an old church. Sweeney is waiting inside. Roarke arrives. Neither man brings an army. Just 2 guns, 2 men. One final conversation. Sweeney says, "You were always going to do this." Roarke answers, "You were always going to betray us." Sweeney shakes his head. "I was trying to save you." Roarke laughs. "By selling us to Gotti?" Sweeney looks surprised. "Who told you that?" Roarke says, "Does it matter?" Sweeney realizes that someone has been manipulating both of them. He tells Roarke the truth. He never planned to sell the younger Westies. He planned to make a deal with Gotti to protect them. But the deal collapsed. Gotti wanted control. Sweeney refused. That is why Gotti abandoned him. Roarke lowers his weapon. For a moment, it looks like the war might finally end. Then the church doors open. Men enter. Not Westies. Not FBI. Gotti's men. Roarke looks at Sweeney. Sweeney says, "Now you understand. They've both been played." The shooting begins. Roarke and Sweeney fight side by side. For the first time in the entire season, the 2 men are working together. They escape through a hidden passage. But outside, the FBI is waiting. Polk orders everyone to surrender. Sweeney looks at Roarke. Roarke says, "Go." Sweeney asks, "What?" Roarke says, "You built this place." He looks toward the street. "I'll finish it." Sweeney realizes what Roarke is doing. He's going to stay behind. Roarke walks into the street. Polk orders him to drop his weapon. He does. Then he says, "I want a deal." Polk says, "You're in no position to negotiate." Roarke smiles. "You want Gotti." Polk freezes. Continues, "You want Sweeney." Polk says, "And you?" He looks back toward the church. "I want my people alive." The episode cuts away. Then we see Sweeney. He's walking through a subway station. Alone. No money. No men. No organization. For the first time, he is just another man in New York. He reaches the platform. His phone rings. It's Keenan. Sweeney answers. Keenan says, "Roarke talked." Sweeney closes his eyes. "What did he give them?" Keenan says, "Everything." Sweeney hangs up. Then he hears footsteps. He turns. Nobody is there. He looks down. On the platform is a folded piece of paper. He opens it. 3 words. Irish goodbye. Sweeney looks around and finally understands. Someone has been watching him. He walks toward the train. The doors open. He gets inside. The doors close. And just before the train disappears, we see a man standing in the distance. Gotti. Watching. Smiling. But the episode isn't finished yet. We cut to Keenan's house. His son is asleep. Keenan sits beside him. He places a photograph on the table. Then he notices something behind the photograph, a small envelope. Inside is a photograph of Bridget. Keenan turns pale. On the back are 4 words. She knows about you. Keenan looks toward the bedroom, and suddenly, someone knocks on the front door. Once, twice. Keenan reaches for his gun. He slowly walks toward the door. So what does the ending actually mean? The biggest twist is that Roarke and Sweeney were never completely in control. They believed they were fighting each other, but Gotti was playing both sides. He wanted the Westies weakened, and the FBI investigation made that even easier. Roarke eventually realizes that killing Sweeney would only make him responsible for the collapse. So instead, he sacrifices himself. He gives Polk information, but we don't know how much information he actually gives her. And that becomes important, because if Roarke gave Polk everything, Gotti is in serious danger. But if Roarke held something back, then he may have created an escape plan. Sweeney's ending is equally important. He loses everything: his organization, his power, his allies, and possibly his freedom. But he survives, and that means he could return more dangerous than ever. Then there is Keenan. He thought cooperating with Polk would protect his family. Instead, it may have placed them in even greater danger. And Bridget's photograph suggests that her story is far from finished. Someone knows about her, someone knows about Keenan, and someone may be connecting the entire investigation to the IRA storyline. That means the next chapter could become much bigger than the Westies. The Irish goodbye fits perfectly, because sometimes the most painful goodbye is the one nobody gets to say.